Hello. A case occurred in the 1990s, where in less than an hour, 7 people were brutally murdered. Due to the lack of clear witnesses and evidence, the investigation hit a dead end. So what happened that day? Let's go back to January 8th, 1993 to delve deeper into the story. January 8th, 1993 was a Friday. The story took place in the town of Palatine, Illinois, USA, a place known for its good living conditions and security. At 10:30 p.m., snow was still falling outside and the festive Christmas atmosphere hadn't entirely faded away. The phone at the Palatine Police Department suddenly rang. The on-duty officer assumed it was another call about a minor issue. However, upon answering, he heard a panicked voice on the other end saying, "Officer, my son Michael hasn't come home yet. His workplace usually closes at 9 p.m. and he's typically home by 9:30, but he's still not here. My son works at Brown's Chicken. I hope you can help investigate." Michael was a student at Palatine High School. To earn some extra money, he worked part-time at Brown's Chicken whenever he had free time. He usually went straight home after work, and if he had plans or needed to go out, he would inform his family, but today he hadn't done that. When the patrol police arrived at the restaurant, they found Brown's Chicken closed and its lights off. There were no signs of anything unusual, so they called back to the station reporting that there didn't seem to be any problems. Perhaps Michael was just hanging out somewhere. At 1 a.m., the phone at the police station rang continuously with multiple alarming calls reporting that their family members had gone missing without prior notice. Coincidentally, all these missing persons worked at Brown's Chicken. The on-duty officer realized something was wrong and immediately dispatched 2 more officers to the restaurant to investigate. Upon arrival, the officers found the store closed and the lights off. Peering through the window by the streetlight, they saw the restaurant was clean and tidy, with chairs placed on tables and no signs of anything unusual. They decided to check the back door. One officer pushed the door and found it was unlocked. They exchanged glances, drew their guns, and entered the restaurant. Inside, everything was silent. When they turned on the lights, a horrifying scene greeted them. Bloodstains covered the floor, but no one was in sight. The blood trails led to the cold room and freezer at the back of the kitchen. They moved to open the cold room door on the west side, and 2 bodies appeared before them. Horrified, they quickly moved to open the freezer door on the east side, revealing another gruesome sight. Bodies piled on top of each other, all with gunshot wounds. That scene left an indelible mark on the 2 officers. Initial assessments showed a total of 7 people had been killed, all from gunshot wounds. Some victims had not only been shot multiple times, but also stabbed repeatedly. The 2 victims in the cold room on the west side were the restaurant owner Richard Ahlenfeld, 50-year-old, and an employee, Thomas Menace, 32-year-old. The 5 victims in the freezer on the east side were Lynn Ahlenfeld, the owner's wife, 49-year-old Marcus, a full-time employee, 31-year-old. Guadalupe, a night shift cook, 36-year-old, and 2 part-time student employees, Rico L. Solis, 17-year-old, and Michael A. Castro, 16-year-old. Due to the severity of the case, the local police quickly coordinated with the Chicago Criminal Police, Illinois State Police, and the FBI to form a 75-member Palatine project team and began a comprehensive investigation. Investigators examined every detail at the scene, took hundreds of photos, and meticulously documented the details. They found clues at the scene. Investigators discovered a mop with bloodstains next to the store's east door, which showed signs of being cleaned. This suggested that the perpetrator might have used the mop to clean up the blood after committing the crime, indicating that the perpetrator had a calm demeanor or was very familiar with the store. He knew that no one would come to the store after it closed, so he didn't hurriedly flee but stayed to clean the scene. On the store's roof and on the victims, investigators found at least 20 bullets, possibly from a .38 caliber revolver, but they couldn't trace the gun's origin. An unusual phenomenon in the store was that there was 1 chair near the ordering counter placed correctly while all other chairs were flipped upside down on the tables. Flipping the chairs was done to facilitate cleaning the store. The chair near the counter indicated that although business hours were over, there was still a customer in the store. Was this last customer the perpetrator, or someone who knew something? The store's revenue that day was between $1,800 and $1,900, but the cash register was empty. This suggested that the perpetrator's goal might have been robbery, but why did he brutally murder innocent people? In the cash register of the chicken restaurant, investigators found a receipt with the timestamp 9:07 p.m. on January 8th. This was the last receipt of the day. The last customer had ordered a fried chicken combo, 2 small buns, a pack of fries, and a drink. The store was cleaned thoroughly, with only 1 trash bin containing some chicken bones, fries, and other trash like napkins that hadn't been emptied. Police weren't sure if this bag of trash would be helpful in solving the case, but they collected and froze it. After the incident, the Palatine Special Investigation Team continuously checked nearby residents and investigated all friends and relatives of the victims. They also looked into former employees of the chicken restaurant but found no useful leads. The perpetrators seemed to have vanished without a trace. During the investigation, the police made a mistake. 2 weeks after the incident, they remembered that there was a 24-hour gas station near the crime scene with surveillance cameras. Unfortunately, all the footage from those cameras had been overwritten. The Special Investigation Team of hundreds of officers continued investigating for a year only to determine that the perpetrator's motive was robbery, without any clear other reasons. The case thus hit a dead end. Under public pressure and the inability to solve the case, the Chicago police thought of enlisting the help of the famous physical evidence analysis expert Dr. Lee Chang-yu. He is a renowned Chinese-American detective, often referred to as the modern Sherlock Holmes or the Chinese detective god. After receiving the invitation, Dr. Lee began his work. On January 28, 1994, a year after the Browns chicken massacre, Dr. Lee was invited to Palatine to join the investigation. He thoroughly studied numerous case files, physical evidence, and hundreds of crime scene photos to recreate the crime scene. Through the reconstruction, he concluded that the scene was consistent with a robbery-murder case. The trash bin contents matched the meal purchased at 9:07 p.m. that day. Dr. Lee discovered that the last customer only ate the chicken wings from the combo meal, leaving the rest almost untouched. Therefore, it could be concluded that the person's purpose for coming to the store was not to eat. After placing the last order, all the employees in the chicken restaurant were killed. The scene left no significant evidence, suggesting that the perpetrator had prepared very carefully before acting, choosing the right time when the store was closed to commit the crime. Overall, the last customer was likely the main suspect. According to the last receipt, the order was placed at 9:07 p.m., while the store closed at 9 p.m. In the USA, there is a strong sense of time, and they are very rigid about it. When business hours are over, even if a customer arrives, they won't open the door. However, that day, despite it being past closing time and the store having been cleaned, they still accepted the order. This suggests that the customer might have been an old acquaintance, and the staff violated the rules to extend their working hours to serve him. Only the chicken wings in the combo meal were eaten, so Dr. Lee speculated that the perpetrator could be black or Hispanic because the USA is a multicultural nation and each ethnicity has its own eating habits. White people usually prefer chicken breasts, Asians prefer drumsticks, while blacks and Hispanics like chicken wings. According to the receipt, the combo only included one chicken wing, but the bones in the trash indicated 2 wings. It's likely that a staff member added an extra wing further, proving that the perpetrator was an acquaintance. The chicken wing bones were chewed on both ends, which would surely leave the suspect's saliva. Dr. Lee used DNA technology, which was newly developed at the time, to extract DNA from the chicken wing bones. In 1994, very few people knew about DNA technology. Even the Palatine police, where the case occurred, hadn't heard of it and didn't know what DNA was. However, because DNA technology was not advanced enough at that time, the small amount of saliva extracted from the chicken bones was insufficient for analysis. So Dr. Lee suggested preserving the sample for future analysis when the technology improved. As time passed, the case saw no breakthroughs until 1998, when DNA technology had made significant advancements and the police successfully analyzed the suspect's DNA. However, the USA had not yet established a complete DNA database, and manually comparing DNA was labor-intensive, time-consuming, and costly. By then, it had been 5 years since the incident, and they still couldn't find anyone matching the suspect's DNA. With no new evidence emerging, the case remained unsolved. On March 25, 2002, 9 years after the incident, a woman named Ann Lockett provided the police with a crucial lead. According to Ann, her ex-boyfriend James Degorski and a person named Juan Luna were the main perpetrators of the Browns chicken massacre. In her testimony, Ann revealed that the day after the incident, her boyfriend James Degorski called her and told her to turn on the TV, where news of the 7 murders at Brown's Chicken was being broadcast. He proudly claimed responsibility for the crime. Not long after, James and Juan Luna detailed the incident to her, but she didn't dare report it to the police because James had threatened to kill her if she revealed the information. She lived in fear every day and didn't dare report to the police. After some time, she and James broke up. 9 years after the incident, she confided the entire story to her current boyfriend, who encouraged her to go to the police, and she finally dared to tell everything. Initially, the police were very skeptical because they had received thousands of leads since the case occurred, none of which were useful. However, when Ann described the crime in detail, the police paid close attention, particularly to a detail that had never been made public. She described how a mop with blood had been used to clean up vomit and French fries. When one of the victims was shot, he vomited the French fries he had eaten. To make sure the person was dead, James used the mop to prod his body. To avoid drawing attention, the police began secretly investigating the two suspects. They discovered that Juan had previously worked at the Brown's Chicken restaurant and was Hispanic, which matched Dr. Lee's hypothesis. At the time, Juan had avoided suspicion by providing an alibi. The police found Eileen, who had provided Juan's alibi. After questioning, Eileen admitted that she had lied to the investigators because in reality, after James and Juan committed the crime, she had hidden the truth. They immediately approached Eileen and paid her $50, asking her to help provide an alibi. Additionally, Juan's DNA matched perfectly with the DNA collected from the chicken bones 4 years earlier. On May 16, 2002, the police successfully arrested the two suspects. After hours of questioning, they finally confessed to the crime. At the time of the crime, both were still high school students with criminal records for substance abuse and a history of torturing small animals, being considered troublemakers in the area. In a 44-minute confession video, Juan described what had happened in the restaurant on January 8, 1993. That night, they wanted to do something big to seek a thrill. Because they had previously worked at Brown's Chicken, they knew the store always closed at exactly 9 p.m. and had no burglar alarm system. Moreover, they were very familiar with the store's environment, so they chose it as their target. On the night of January 8, 1993, it was heavily snowing. Juan entered the store at the last minute before closing time. As expected, there were no customers left in the store except for the owner and the staff. He ordered a portion of fried chicken, and the staff recognized him, so not only did they allow him to place an order after 9 p.m., but they also knew he liked chicken wings, so they gave him an extra piece. Juan sat eating the chicken wings and waited for James to arrive. As soon as James entered, he locked the back door of the store, put on gloves, and shot at a staff member who tried to flee after noticing something unusual. Then he continued to use the gun to herd all the employees into the cold room and freezer in the kitchen, followed by a brutal massacre. According to Juan's confession, initially they only intended to rob the place and had no intention of killing anyone. However, after encountering resistance, they lost control and killed everyone in the store. However, this story clearly did not align with their actions at the scene because they had brought a lot of spare ammunition. After committing the murders, they were calm enough to clean up the scene before taking the day's revenue, indicating that their motive was not simply robbery. On May 10, 2007, based on DNA evidence and the testimonies of two witnesses, Juan was convicted of murdering 7 people. However, because one juror steadfastly opposed the death penalty, it was not passed. Ultimately, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. On September 29, 2009, based on the testimonies of his ex-girlfriend Anne and Eileen, who had provided the alibi, James was also convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. From the time the 7 victims were murdered in 1993 until the suspects were arrested in 2002 and convicted in 2007, the case spanned 14 years. During those 14 years, the families of the victims endured an immense loss unimaginable to ordinary people. Meanwhile, the case also cast a gloomy shadow over the town of Palatine. After the incident, Brown's Chicken sales dropped by 35%, leading to the closure of 100 restaurants in the Chicago area. The site of the incident remained vacant for many years, was later converted into a laundromat, but eventually failed and was demolished in April 2001. Today, a Chase Bank stands there. In reality, many cold cases remain unsolved due to the technological limitations of their time. This does not mean they will never be solved. Remember, there is no perfect crime in this world. At around 11 p.m. on May 11, 2013, the on-duty police in Ganzhou City, Jiangxi Province, China, received a phone call from a resident reporting that his 25-year-old daughter, Wang Rui, had been missing for 2 days. After receiving the report, the police went to the man's house to investigate the situation. Rui's father, Wang Lin, stated that in the afternoon of May 9th, around 4 p.m. before finishing work, Rui had called home. At that time, he asked if she would be home for dinner, and she replied affirmatively. However, a little later, she called her mother and said she would be dining out with friends and would not be eating at home. Since Rui often had dinner out, the family thought nothing of it. That evening, they waited until past 10 p.m., but Rui still had not returned, so her mother, anxious, called her again only to find that her phone was turned off. She reassured herself that perhaps her daughter's phone battery had died. However, the next morning, Rui still had not returned, so her parents called her workplace, only to be told by her colleagues that she had not come in. Rui's parents called around to friends and acquaintances to ask if anyone had seen her, but no one had any information. After nearly 2 days of searching without success, Rui's mother remembered the red car her daughter had recently bought and shuddered at the thought that she might have been robbed and harmed. She urged her husband to call the police. Based on the family's statement, the police formed 2 groups to investigate. One group collected data from all the cameras along the route between Rui's workplace and home, while the other group investigated her social relationships for useful information. The missing person Wang Rui, 25 years old, worked as an accountant for a car showroom. Her family and economic background were ordinary, with her parents being retired workers. From the information provided by Rui's relatives, the police learned that her personal life was quite simple, mainly consisting of going to work and returning home, with very little social interaction. Rui was an introverted and gentle young person. At work, she was very sociable, professionally competent, always completed her tasks, and had no conflicts with her colleagues. After considering Rui's family background and situation, the police ruled out kidnapping for ransom and had not identified any suspicious individuals. The investigation had yet to yield any clues to solve the case. The most pressing question was where Rui went, whom she met, and why she changed her mind about having dinner at home after leaving the work on May 9th. The police immediately checked the telecommunications records of Rui's calls and messages before she went missing and discovered a double call between the times she contacted her family. The identity of the man who made these calls was quickly determined. His name was Zhang Quen, a driver for the military engineering office in Chongyi County. When the police arrived to investigate, Yun stated that he had a romantic relationship with Rui, but her parents strongly opposed it. The reason was that he was not financially well off, his family was underprivileged, and he had to take care of his elderly parents who did not have pensions. Fearing that their daughter would struggle if she married him, Rui's family arranged for her to meet other people with better financial backgrounds. Despite the family's disapproval, the two continued to date secretly. On the afternoon of May 9th, the day Rui went missing, she and her boyfriend had arranged to meet in Chongyi County, where Zhang Quen worked. Knowing that her parents were unhappy with this relationship, Rui only mentioned that she was going out for dinner with friends. Around 7 p.m., June called Rui again, but she said she was getting her hair done and would arrive a little later. The police found the hair salon, and the staff confirmed June's account, as Rui had been at the salon around 7 p.m. and left at 8 p.m. The police immediately checked the cameras around the hair salon area and discovered that 2 cameras had captured footage at 8:05 p.m. on May 9th, showing Rui driving her red car into a supermarket parking lot. Through the supermarket surveillance camera, the police saw Rui dressed in a stylish office outfit and carrying a handbag. She bought 2 bottles of red wine and then went to the fast food counter to purchase some food. About half an hour later, she left the supermarket and seemingly vanished. According to Zhang Quen, on the night of May 9th, he waited for his girlfriend until late, but did not meet her. Feeling worried, he continuously called Rui, but her phone was turned off. June thought Rui might have encountered some misfortune on the way. Given the information that the two had planned to meet in Chongyi, the police retrieved a large number of street surveillance videos from Ganzhou to Chongyi to track Rui's red car, but found no relevant clues. Instead, the police discovered another event. A car with the military technical department's license plate driven by Zhang Quen was seen traveling from Chongyi towards Ganzhou. At 3 a.m., Zhang Quen was driving very fast on empty roads, seemingly in a hurry. It was clear that he had arranged for his girlfriend to come from Ganzhou to Chongyi for dinner. Yet on that very night, he hurriedly drove from Chongyi to Ganzhou. Why? Was Zhang Quen involved in Wang Rui's disappearance? And why did he not inform the police about his trip to Ganzhou on the night Rui went missing? Once again, the police interrogated Zhang Quen. This time, he explained that after his girlfriend did not show up for their meeting, he was so worried that he drove from Chongyi to Ganzhou, fearing she might have had an accident on the way. It was a work vehicle, and a colleague accompanied him on the highway from Chongyi to Ganzhou. On the way, besides driving and observing, he also called the local traffic police to inquire if any accidents had occurred. Since Zhang Quen was using his work vehicle for personal matters, he would certainly face disciplinary action if discovered, so he concealed his trip to Ganzhou that night and did not report it to the police. The police approached the colleague who had accompanied him, and he confirmed that Zhang Quen's statement was true. Furthermore, the police requested to retrieve call records from the highway traffic police on the night of May 9th. The traffic police confirmed that Zhang Quen did indeed call to inquire if there had been any traffic accidents from evening to night on May 9th. Thus, Zhang Quen essentially had no time to commit the crime. The case gradually fell into a deadlock due to the lack of other clues, but Zhang Quen suddenly provided the police with a new lead. He mentioned that before dating him, Rui had been in a relationship with another man, but they had broken up. This man had tried to reconcile multiple times, but Rui had firmly refused. The police narrowed down the phone numbers that had contacted Rui and found this man. His name was Gao Lang, 28 years old, an IT employee at a software company in Guangzhou. The two met when Gao Lang bought a car at the showroom where Rui worked. The police went to Gao Lang's workplace, but the manager said he had resigned a few days ago. From Gao Lang's company records, the police went to his house, but the door was locked, and neighbors reported not seeing him for several days. At this point, Gao Lang became the prime suspect because he also disappeared after Rui went missing. However, the police unexpectedly received a call from Gao Lang when he saw a missed call from them. In the conversation, Gao Lang stated that he had quit his job and moved in with a new girlfriend he met online in Zhejiang. Moreover, he had left Guangzhou on May 7th, 2 days before Rui disappeared. The police investigated and confirmed that Gao Lang did indeed leave Guangzhou on May 7th, as he had claimed. With leads from both of Rui's boyfriends falling through, the police continued to interrogate other individuals who had contacted Rui and focused their investigation on the time she went missing, but they did not obtain any promising information. The crucial point was that Rui had arranged to meet her boyfriend in Chengyi, but she did not appear on the highway to Chengyi. So where did she go? After several thorough checks, investigators discovered that Rui's car had passed a surveillance camera near the toll station of Guangzhou City. The surveillance camera showed that Rui's car did not head towards Chengyi, as planned, but went in the direction of Hubian. However, due to the darkness and the blurry camera, it was impossible to see how many people were in the car or even who was driving. The only thing that could be determined was that at 9:30 p.m. that night, after passing several street cameras, Rui's red car was speeding, overtaking several cars in the same direction, and eventually lost when nearing Hubian town. Notably, Rui had no acquaintances or relatives in Hubian, so why did she go there? Was the driver Rui, or had someone else overpowered her and driven the car there? Half a month had passed and Rui's whereabouts remained a mystery, with even her car still missing. The police decided to post reward notices everywhere to find Rui and the red car, and also posted the information on social media, hoping to leverage the power of social networks for the search. Not long after the post was published, a young man around 20 years old came to the police station to report. He said that on that day in the supermarket parking lot, he saw a red Honda Civic and a woman dressed in business attire with shoulder-length hair matching the description on the notice. There was an incident that made a strong impression on him, and he still remembered it clearly. Around 8:30 p.m. on May 9th, while he was sitting in his car using his phone waiting for his girlfriend to finish shopping, his car happened to be parked right behind the red car. The red car was about 8 meters away from his, so he saw a pretty young woman dressed elegantly approaching the red car. She opened the trunk and put in the 2 paper bags she had just bought in the supermarket. Just as she finished and was about to get into the driver's seat, a young man opened the passenger door and got into the car. He couldn't see the man's face clearly because it was dark and rainy, but he remembered that the man was somewhat slim and small. At that moment, he felt something was not quite right, because the man's actions were unusually quick, not like those of 2 people familiar with each other getting into a car together. As he was observing, his girlfriend came out of the supermarket, and he reversed the car to leave. However, thinking back, he found the situation a bit odd, so he drove slowly forward, intentionally glancing back at the red car. At this point, he saw the man using both hands to hold the woman, and she was clinging to his shoulders, looking somewhat like a couple. His girlfriend commented that they were probably a couple being affectionate in the car and suggested not to look and just leave. He didn't think much more about it and continued to drive away. It wasn't until he saw the post about Rui in the red car that he recalled what he had witnessed. That night, the incident in the car might not have been what they thought. Perhaps the man was not holding the woman but strangling her, and she was not clinging to him but trying to push him away. So was that woman Rui? Based on the information provided by the witness, investigators went to the parking spot and retrieved video footage from the surveillance camera. Although the angle was far and dark, they identified the car as Wang Rui's. However, the angle was too obscure to clearly see the strange man in the car. While the footage didn't add much valuable information, the timing revealed something unusual. From the time Rui opened the door and got into the car at 8:34 p.m. to the time the car left at 9 p.m., 25 minutes had passed. So what exactly happened during those 25 minutes? Based on the camera footage and the witness report, the police concluded that the mysterious man who got into Rui's car was the prime suspect. This was also the reason Rui's plans changed that night. Who was he and where is Rui? No one knows the current whereabouts of Rui or her red car. As the days passed without finding the culprit, the case weighed heavily on Rui's family, who felt more heartbroken each day and also on the investigators, who grew increasingly anxious and frustrated with the slow progress. On June 5, 2013, nearly a month after Rui's disappearance, the criminal investigation team received another report from a local resident. He had seen a red car parked on a deserted road near the steel market. The man reported that he noticed the red car because it had no license plate and was covered in dust, as if someone had deliberately removed the plates and abandoned it near the steel market on Qinghai Avenue, Gangtai Town. Upon receiving the report, investigators quickly arrived at the scene and found a red Honda Civic with both front and rear license plates removed. After a preliminary investigation, the police confirmed that this was Wang Rui's car. The vehicle was covered in dust, and the tires were rusted, indicating it had been parked there for some time. To gather more clues, the police conducted a thorough inspection of the car and found feng shui decorations stuffed into the storage compartment behind the seat. Rui's driver's license and her company's seal were also found in the car. 2 bottles of red wine were found in the trunk, and a square white button still attached with thread was found in the crevice of the seat. Rui's parents confirmed that this button was from the shirt she was wearing on the day she disappeared. The fallen button suggested that Rui had struggled with the stranger in the car, causing the button to be torn off during the scuffle. Although the car had been carefully cleaned, the police still found some faint traces on the car seat. DNA analysis revealed that the bloodstains belonged to Wang Rui, suggesting she had likely been murdered. The car was parked in a relatively hidden and rarely frequented location, and if the post hadn't been widely shared, it might have taken much longer for someone to discover it. The police determined that whoever abandoned the car there must be familiar with the area. After collecting surrounding surveillance videos, they concluded that the car was left at 11:27 p.m. on May 9th. Discovering the missing car provided a breakthrough in the investigation, as it yielded substantial evidence. The most crucial clue was that, after meticulously examining the car, the police found the DNA of a man on the front passenger seat and in the glove compartment. This DNA sample was immediately sent to the forensic lab for testing. While awaiting results, the police continued to investigate the scene. Analysis of the car's route revealed that it drove straight to Gangtai Town, Hubian County, on a path suggesting intimate knowledge of the area, as it took the most direct and efficient route. This indicated that the driver was very familiar with the region. The police centered their search on Gangtai Town, canvassing a 2-kilometer radius and collecting DNA samples from local men who met specific criteria, knowing how to drive, working in or frequently visiting Ganzhou City, aged 20 to 40. Ultimately, the police gathered 330 DNA samples from different men. On the morning of June 27th, over a month and a half after Rui's disappearance, a resident working on irrigation reported finding a body in a ditch. The area was very desolate, with sparse vegetation, and the ditch had an embankment resembling a concealed bunker where the victim's body was discarded, making it difficult to find. A forensic doctor determined that the victim was a woman aged 25 to 30 whose body had severely decomposed, with an estimated time of death about 45 days prior. The body had shoulder-length brown hair and wore a white shirt and black trousers similar to the business attire Wang Rui was seen wearing in the supermarket video. The subsequent DNA analysis confirmed that the body was indeed Wang Rui. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation, with clear signs of asphyxiation present on the body. While the police were urgently investigating, a report from the lab revealed that the DNA found on the car matched a profile in the National DNA Database. At this time, the National DNA Database was still being built, and priority was given to storing DNA from individuals with a criminal record, regardless of the severity of their crimes. The matching profile belonged to a man named Wang Qiang, 36 years old. He had previously worked as a loader at the Gangtai Steel Market and had a criminal record for theft. The police promptly tracked down and arrested him. A blood sample from him was sent for comparison, and it was confirmed that the DNA from Qiang matched the DNA found in Rui's car. The investigating officers noted that Wang Qiang's usual workplace was very close to where Rui's car had been abandoned, and his home was just over a kilometer from where her body was discovered. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Wang Qiang confessed to his crime. He recounted that on that rainy day he had been wandering around Ganzhou with the intention of stealing, but hadn't found any opportunity. He targeted women, believing they were easier to overpower. At around 8:20 p.m., while wandering through the supermarket parking lot, he spotted Rui. Seeing her well-dressed, he decided to rob her. As soon as Rui got into her car, he quickly opened the door and sat in the front passenger seat. Startled by the intruder, Rui screamed and demanded to know what he wanted, insisting he get out of her car. Chiang told her he only wanted money and would leave immediately after getting it, promising not to hurt her. Rui said she had no money and demanded he get out, but Chiang noticed a handbag in the back seat. He reached for it to check its contents, but Rui pushed him away and grabbed the bag, shouting at him to leave. This instinctive resistance frightened Chiang. Fearing she would draw attention, he tried to cover her mouth and telling her to be quiet. His actions, however, only heightened her panic, causing her to scream louder and struggle more violently. Terrified and unsure what to do, Chiang tightened his grip until Rui stopped moving. After killing Rui, Chiang was overwhelmed with panic, having escalated from a petty thief to a murderer. He sat in the car staring at her body for over 20 minutes before calming down. Then he drove her car to a secluded ditch near his home and disposed of her body, hoping to delay its discovery. He believed that the longer the body remained hidden, the harder it would be to trace the crime back to him. He removed the license plates, thoroughly cleaned the car, and then abandoned it on the roadside near the steel market. He removed all the feng shui decorations from the car and stored them away to prevent anyone familiar with Rui from recognizing the vehicle. Wang Chiang passed by the car daily, discreetly observing it, but noticed no changes. A whole month passed, and he began to think he had gotten away with his crime. However, the act of removing and hiding the license plates to avoid detection ultimately drew attention. According to Wang Chiang's confession after the incident, he only managed to take 400 yuan from Rui's handbag. Chiang recounted that he previously worked as a driver and loader at the steel market, earning 2,000 yuan per month. Being small and weak, the 2,000 yuan monthly salary barely covered the living expenses for 3 people. Chiang had an 80-year-old mother and a 2-year-old child to care for. His wife had left because she couldn't endure the poverty, leaving him to earn money to support his elderly mother and young child. His mother's constant illness made their lives even more challenging. Chiang always hoped for a better paying and easier job. However, the life of crime did not lead to a better income for Wang Chiang. Instead, it resulted in a heinous crime that left his mother and child without their sole provider. Indeed, Wang Chiang's situation was one of poverty and hardship, but resorting to theft and violence is not a justified solution to any difficult circumstance. If everyone in tough situations chose to steal, society would descend into chaos, wouldn't it? As for the victim Rui, she was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time, encountering a robber who brutally murdered her. However, Rui lacked the experience to handle such dangerous situations. Alone and in an enclosed space with the robber, she faced an extremely perilous scenario. In such a situation, instead of trying to retrieve her bag, she should have taken the opportunity to escape while the robber was reaching for it in the back seat. The key point to remember in robbery situations is to prioritize your safety above all else. Money can be replaced, your life cannot. How do you feel about today's case? Leave a comment so we can discuss. And if you liked it, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.